Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I'm especially excited to have my two guests on this week, and because I discovered them one day and I don't know how, and I was so excited when I discovered them. I paused. They have a podcast which we're going to talk about. I paused in the middle of it to send them an email and say, you have to please be my guests. And they're Sarah and Beth Ann, and they're the voices behind the Brilliant Business Moms podcast, and they also have an Etsy shop called the Amateur Naturalist. So hi, Sarah and Beth Ann.
Hi. Hey, thank you so much for having us, Ijama. We're super excited.
Thank you. So am I. So can you please introduce yourselves to the audience?
I'm Sarah, and I live in Pittsburgh, and Beth Ann and I have been business partners for a couple of years together. We actually started with a handmade jewelry business with other family members, and then created our Amateur Naturalist Etsy shop, which started in the fall of 2012. And most recently, we started the podcast that Beth Ann could mention.
So I'm Beth Ann. And in case you don't know, Sarah and I are actually sisters as well as business partners. So we've been scheming and dreaming together for quite a long time. So recently we launched the Brilliant Business Moms podcast, and that really came from just feeling like we wanted to get more business advice for our Etsy shop, as well as branching out into blogging and getting that sort of advice as well. And so we just decided, you know what, let's grab people, let's interview them, and let's share that knowledge and the things that we're learning with other moms that we think it could help.
Thank you. Yes. And you guys are doing such a great job on the podcast and your website. Your website looks really good. So we're going to talk about that. But let's first talk about Etsy. You both have an Etsy shop that you run together. When did you first discover Etsy?
We probably discovered Etsy back when we were doing the handmade jewelry with our other relatives, my mom and our sister-in-law. And we were doing craft shows mostly at the time and selling those items locally. And people would start to mention at craft shows, are you on Etsy? Are you on Etsy? And we kept saying, no, we're not. And we actually, at first, put some of our jewelry on our own website. We didn't end up using Etsy at first, which was a big mistake.
Oh, yeah. Big mistake.
Etsy has so much traffic, and our own piddly website, of course, with our handmade jewelry wasn't bringing in any customers. So that was a huge learning curve for us, how awesome Etsy was. And we eventually did put some items on Etsy, but that was kind of when that business venture in general was already kind of going downhill as a group. We were kind of losing our enthusiasm for that. But as that enthusiasm was dwindling, then Beth Ann and I, just the two of us together, came up with this new butterfly terrarium kit idea. And so we knew with that idea, we had to be on Etsy from the very beginning.
Oh, excellent. So you don't do any more jewelry?
Right. No. Yeah, we launched the butterfly terrariums in the fall of 2012, and I want to say maybe we let the jewelry go on for a few more months and then said, no, that's just we're not excited about it, and the sales weren't as good, so we just kind of let that side of the business go.
Okay. So for the people who don't know what one of your terrarium kits is, can you tell us?
Well, go for it, Sarah.
Okay.
Sorry. Sarah, you do such a great job of describing them. So
okay. It's hard to know how to alternate these questions here.
I know. Okay. I should call you by name so that
that could work.
Okay. So Sarah, are you the Etsy person?
I primarily now I'm in charge of our Etsy shop because I'm the shipping headquarters. So right now I'm taking lead on that, but at the beginning it was extremely both of us in the creation of it and the starting of the shop. It was a huge effort for both of us.
Right.
Equally.
And sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but yes, I was very curious about that because you're both in two different states running one business, one online business where you sell physical products. How did you handle that?
Well, when we were first starting out and creating these butterfly terrarium kits, so we sell them as kits, but in order to photograph them, we had to physically make them first, and then we ship them though as kits because they would fall apart in the mail. They have a real butterfly specimen in them with dried flowers and moss for people to put together. But so all of our kit creations, our domes, our displays, we have done that when we are together. And we just spend a week at a time when we're visiting each other, just making terrariums and working on them together because we feel like we make the best products when we work on them together.
Right.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh, excellent. So all these photographs of the kits put together, you both did them, and then you did your photography, and then you just sell everything as kits that the buyers will have to assemble once they receive them. Sarah?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
And
Okay.
of course, Beth Ann chimed in. And I have a good photographer friend, so any photos that you see on our Etsy shop that are really fabulous, those would be her. Those would be Ariel Holcomb's work and not ours. But then, of course, I have a little light box, and so for a while I was taking more of the blank white background kind of photo shots or the close-ups of some things within the kit. So that was a bit of a problem too, because we would build a whole bunch of displays in Pittsburgh, and then I would have to pile them in my car and drive them to South Carolina and then take all the photos. So it's a little tricky at times, but it seems to be working. So
now, yeah. Do you ever have any customers that don't want to put the kits together and ask for like a custom order where you would put them together and ship, even though it's kind of tricky to do that, Beth Ann?
Yes, we have had several customers ask for that. And so Sarah's been able to, now correct me, Sarah, I think you've done this twice for people in the Pittsburgh area who were willing to pay a bit more to have Sarah create the kit and put it together and essentially just hand deliver it to them already made. So we can do that locally for people, but if it's a matter of shipping it anywhere, we just tell them, listen, it's not going to look good. It just will not survive the mail. So we try to ease their fears a bit by explaining that we provide you a really great detailed step-by-step guide. There's step-by-step photos, and that we are not particularly artsy artisan geniuses or anything like that. So we feel like if we can do this, then our customers can definitely do it too.
Okay, excellent. So, do either of you have jobs outside of Etsy and your Brilliant Business Moms podcast business?
I'm currently a stay-at-home mom with my 3 children. I previously was an accountant, but I gave that up when my youngest was born 3.5 years ago.
Okay. And that's Sarah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And I am a registered nurse, and I just quit my job, or I guess I should say resign from my job. That sounds better. In April of this year. So I had been working part-time, and then in April, when we were getting ready to launch the podcast, I decided that I didn't want to be pulled in so many different directions. So
was that hard for you to walk away from that guaranteed paycheck to launch your business, Beth Ann?
It was a little bit difficult because as a nurse, it is nice to know that I can sign up for the shifts that I want, just go on into work and get that guaranteed paycheck. And so it was kind of a nice little insurance policy for our family, essentially, where I could sign up for more shifts when I wanted to. But I think for me, I just realized more and more what I wanted out of life and how I wanted things to go. And I wanted the freedom to build a really fabulous business with Sarah. And so, yeah, it's been a little bit tricky in these early days. I feel like we're having to crack down a little bit more on our budget to make sure we can make this happen. But I feel really confident that a year from now, I'll be so glad that I made the leap.
Yeah, I know. I think when people make just such bold moves, the stories that come out are just some of the best. So I look forward to hearing your story in a year from both of you. So with families and now 2 businesses on your hands, Sarah, how do you manage your time?
Well, I have been trying to get myself to be a bit more focused. It's so easy to be all over the place. So I'm trying to really work on myself in being more focused. But really, I'm trying to really crack down at nap time. My youngest still naps every day from about 1 to 3 or 3:30. And my older 2 are in the school year. One's at school, and the other one I still kind of have an afternoon rest period for her just to read or play quietly. So from 1 to 3, I'm just trying to book it as much as I can. And then every once in a while steal time like in the evenings and things like that.
Okay. How about you, Beth Ann? How do you manage your time?
So my schedule is a little bit different because I've always been kind of a night owl. So I feel like I get most of my work done after 9 p.m. So after my 3-year-old Holden is comfortably tucked in bed, sometimes I'll spend from 9 till midnight or occasionally 1 or 2 in the morning, just, depending on what I'm working on and how excited I am about the project or things like that. Or, of course, when the deadline is for the project.
Yeah.
But I do have nap time as well, although I feel like by nap time, I'm not sure what it is about my social, energetic little guy, but by nap time, I usually just chill out maybe for a minute. So
yeah, you need your own nap too.
Yeah.
So I listened to one of your podcasts. So based on what you both just said, let me guess. Beth Ann, you're the one who was sending the rabid emails at like 2 a.m. Am I right?
You got it. Yes. You nailed it.
I thought that was so funny when when you guys said that. I was like, oh my goodness, I can so relate. So, okay, as far as your Etsy shop goes with the butterflies, what inspired this very unique, I think, craft? You guys are the first ones that I've seen on Etsy, but you're the only ones I've looked for that sell butterfly kits. But what inspired this?
Well, when it actually goes back to the handmade jewelry, which I always find it so interesting that even projects that don't work out always tend to give you a skill or you learn something from that, from that mistake or that journey. But Beth Ann was actually trying to make jewelry from butterfly wings, and
wow.
And she made some and they were beautiful, but she just kept saying, they're so beautiful, these butterflies. I don't want to just use the wing. I want to display the whole butterfly. And of course you see butterfly specimens displayed in shadow boxes quite frequently.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to put them in a more natural environment. And the terrarium rage has been going on for quite a while. So we just brainstormed together and came up with this idea of a butterfly terrarium. And we just went from there and started building them and problem solving the idea. But it all started out with that jewelry business that is no more.
Wow. Wow, that's so amazing that this whole idea came from something that doesn't even exist anymore. It's so true. No knowledge is ever lost. No learning is ever without purpose. So that's excellent. Now, are the every butterfly specimen, is it alive? Are they?
No,
Oh, okay.
sorry. They are all no more. They are
Okay.
dead, or however you want to say it. So it's essentially like a dried, preserved specimen.
Oh,
So
okay.
when they come to us from our supplier, they come dried and kind of folded in half. And then there's an art to the process of spreading a butterfly. And Sarah has become quite skilled at spreading butterflies. So that's part of what we offer to our customers, is the fact that the butterfly comes spread for you, ready
Okay.
essentially to display or put in the terrarium.
Okay, so one less thing they have to do and one less way to mess up if they don't really know how to do it.
Right.
Okay. Now, are there any other Etsy shops you're aware of that sell anything similar to what you sell? Sarah?
Well, recently I actually discovered a copycat.
Ooh.
And I know she's a copycat because you are absolutely right. Nobody else sells a butterfly terrarium kit.
Okay. I know
We
my
are
Etsy.
an original idea. So, yes, there is a copycat out there, but I must say we have a better product and
Yeah.
our pictures are better too.
Yeah, the originals usually are.
And honestly, I just view it as flattery that she must think that we're doing well and that we have a great product, so she's wanting to do the same thing in her shop. And like you said too, Ijama, it's almost hard to catch up if you're not the original. You know, we've already have a whole base of customers who love us and fans. And so for her to start from scratch and try to imitate us is a little bit tricky. I think, you know, it's generally better if you come up with your own idea. But you know what? I mean, honestly, we're really not too worried about it. So
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you guys, because I did look and I was like, nobody else sells this. You guys were the only ones that I saw. Maybe I didn't use the right keywords to find the other person. But you're right. You guys have been open since November 21st, 2012. And I should have said this in the beginning. And your shop has 539 sales. So you have a definite customer base already. And 149 5-star reviews. So you guys must be doing something right and you must be doing something well. Good job.
well, thank you.
So, have you had any bad experiences thus far on Etsy?
I can't say that I have. Sometimes customers, we did have one particular customer. She was a big customer. She bought a lot of items, and it was around Christmas time, but she wanted her items in a slightly unreasonably quickly time frame. We managed to get it done. But other than that, I think most of the customers are wonderful to deal with. We've enjoyed working with them. If we mess up, we admit it, and they don't seem to hold it against us. But we've had a fantastic experience and love all of our customers.
Excellent. Would you say that selling on Etsy has changed your lives in any way, like either imagined or not?
I think so, definitely. I think just starting our Etsy shop and seeing that we could sell, that we could make some money, made me realize that I could be an entrepreneur. I could have a successful business, and I didn't necessarily need to be working for other people anymore. So I think for me, it feels like the possibilities are limitless.
That's excellent. And that's encouraging to hear too, because I think for people who are afraid to make that leap into entrepreneurship, it's just nice to hear that real people like them, just regular everyday people, are doing it. And you don't start from the top anyway, so it's good. How do you promote your Etsy shop? Who does the promotion more, Sarah or Beth Ann?
Beth Ann.
Okay. What do you do, Beth Ann?
Okay, well, I will be very honest with you. Since we have launched the podcast, I feel like we haven't done very much to promote our shop because we've been so focused on growing that podcast audience.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been really neat to see that people are coming over to our shop because they've heard about us on the podcast. So I suppose in that kind of roundabout way, people are still finding out about the shop. But in the past, we have advertised on a large blog that had a crafts and DIY home decor focus. So we bought a sidebar ad with them, and it did perform really well. And I do think actually that kind of off-site link that came into our shop, I think that it really helped our SEO in terms of getting found on Etsy. So that was exciting. And I think we will work with them again in the future and do another ad. And then we've done some giveaways with other bloggers. We like to make sure that it's a big enough audience, though, because you'd be surprised. I think people assume that if a blog has even just a couple thousand views a month or something, that, oh, a giveaway is a great idea. But really, it has to be a pretty big audience, I feel like, for it to really pay off in terms of traffic and then increase sales.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. And then treasury teams on Etsy, we started joining those last July, so July 2013, and we noticed a huge pickup in our traffic, our favorites, and ultimately, I think by the time Christmas rolled around last year, a huge increase in our Christmas sales, and I think a lot of that was due to all the internal promotion that we had done for our shop by being a part of some treasury teams.
Wow, that's excellent. Yeah, the teams help so much. And everyone who has said that they've joined a team has always experienced a benefit, like either increased sales or increased traffic to their shops. How did you decide which Etsy teams you wanted to become a part of?
Well, for me, I noticed that one shop in particular that I kind of had my eye on. I just really love their stuff, which I'll just go ahead and give them a shout out because I think they're great.
Yay.
It's if that's okay with you.
Of course, yes.
It's 2 of 2 Goods. And so it's Dan and Mare Dundon. They're actually brother and sister. And they started their Etsy shop around the same time we did. And I noticed that they had really fabulous sales. I mean, I want to say they're at least triple our sales. And I think they sell at other places as well. And I noticed that they were on the front page of Etsy a lot. And so I started looking at those treasuries that were on the front page and seeing the tags that were included. And I kept seeing this one tag come up, and it was FP Conspiracy. So it was the front page conspiracy Etsy team.
Oh.
And so I looked into it. I was like, what is this all about? And of course, it was a treasury making team. And so I wasn't sure if we would get in, but I went ahead and applied. And I made several treasuries first to kind of show that I was good at making treasuries, and then applied. And they were actually full. But what came out of that is one of the team members, and I think she was a team leader as well, she had started another team called Team Scout. And so she invited us to be a part of that team. And so I'm so thankful that Heather, the leader of Team Scout, kind of took a chance on us and invited us to be a part of that team because it's really made a huge difference for our shop and our sales. And then I guess from there we just kind of took a look at some other treasury teams and kind of kept tabs on which ones tended to make a lot of really great front page worthy treasuries and just requested to join a few more.
Oh, excellent. So I'm glad you mentioned, you talked about that because I don't know if a lot of Etsy sellers always use that much, put that much thought into the teams that they join, because it helps a lot, but it's also good to make an informed decision about what teams to join. So thanks for sharing how you picked yours.
Sure.
How about social media? How important is it? Oh, before I go to that, I just wanted to say, yes, use your podcast to promote your Etsy shop. Yeah, use your podcasts. You have that platform. I was surprised that you didn't talk about it more than you did. Every week, every episode, I'm like, no mention of the Etsy shop. What about the Etsy shop? What's going on? So yes, use it, please. Okay, social media. How important is social media to your shop, Sarah or Beth? Do one of you handle the social media aspect of your Etsy shop now? We'll talk about the brilliant business moms.
I guess for the Etsy shop, really, we didn't dive into social media until we started a blog that we thought was going to pair well with the Etsy shop. So this was January of 2014. We started this blog called backyardbrilliant.com. And to be honest, we took a break from it in June once we started the podcast because it just became too much. It was too much going on all at once, and we kind of had to pick what we wanted to focus on most. But Backyard Brilliant was just all about outdoor fun with your kids, and it really did pair well with what we sell in our Etsy shop, which is, butterfly and bug terrariums and just kind of fostering that sense of learning and wonder in your kids. So we really use that as our stepping off point for social media to promote our shop. Okay. And in that case, I feel like we linked a lot more often to our Etsy shop, and we would sometimes create new products for the Etsy shop based on blog projects that we had done. And then we'd say, okay, let's turn this into a product that we can sell. So we'd link to that. And so out of that sprung a Facebook page and a Twitter and a Pinterest account. But now it's kind of shifting over to the Brilliant Business Moms podcast and focusing on that. So I do think at some point we'll need to make that decision whether we'd want to just switch all of the Amateur Naturalist social media over to its own account and kind of get that rolling, get the shop all of its own stuff. We do, I guess, have a Pinterest account for the Amateur Naturalist, and that has generated quite a lot of leads for us over the years. So we have done some with that.
Okay. So right now, Backyard Brilliant is on the back burner.
Yes.
It's in the backyard.
Yeah, it's Backyard Brilliant's in the backyard, and I'm not sure if we will revive it again because I think Sarah and I both realize that blogging is a lot of work. And
yes.
We enjoy it, but I think we're enjoying doing the podcast and the blog posts that kind of pair with that a whole lot more than we enjoyed the outdoor fun type of blogging.
Okay. Yeah, it's so much work. It's unbelievable. I think a lot of people think you just sit down and write. You don't just sit down and write. There's a lot that goes into it. So Sarah, about how much time each week do you estimate that you spend collectively on your Etsy shop and working your Etsy business?
On Etsy, it really is ebbing and flowing right now. Christmas time, past Christmas, was really busy. I'm the shipping center, and as Beth Ann mentioned, I spread the butterflies, and so I'm also keeping track of our supplies that we need to make the kits, our flowers, our moss, our boxes, all of that. So Christmas, it felt like every spare moment I was packing and shipping and doing all of those sort of things. Right now, it's a bit of a lull, I think, with summer. So right now, it's just kind of maintenance, so maybe 4 hours a week right now. And also, another move that we've made recently is we decided after this past Christmas, we realized how swamped we got. And if the trend continued, which we don't see any reason why it shouldn't, because our year-to-date sales are more than double last year's year-to-date sales. So we see an upward trend. So we decided we needed some extra help on the packaging part of our Etsy shop. So this year I've also been working with, we actually just sent out an email to our friends and said, hey, we're looking for help, somebody who's close, somebody who's local. Do you want a job that you can do in your home for a couple of hours a week? And we got 2 responses from friends that live very close to me. So I've been training them on how to package the kits, which is hopefully will be a huge help come Christmas when I'm swamped again and can't keep up. We're working on developing that force, that labor force behind it to keep things running smoothly. So because everything's dry, it's a preserved dry kit, they can be packed in advance and waiting for the orders to come in. So that's a nice thing with the terrarium kits. We can work ahead and get caught up. So that's kind of where we are right now. But the training is actually taking a little bit more time than I thought. But we're coming along, and I'm glad we started early training people to make these kits before the Christmas rush comes.
Oh, excellent. So you're outsourcing now, which is always a good sign of growth.
Yes, and I'm so glad that we are. It's going to be a huge help, I know. And they're really fun to work with. So it's been a great experience so far.
Good. Very good. Can I ask, and this is more a question for Sarah, I guess, what accounting program would you recommend for other Etsy sellers? Is there one that you use that you think is very helpful for keeping track of sales and cost of goods sold, what's coming in, what's going out for Etsy sellers? This is something I've never asked anyone else, but I figured you're an accountant and you're the Etsy person right now, so you'd be perfect to ask.
Yes. We use QuickBooks Online, and I like the online version because number one, it stays up to date. The old CD disc versions, you always had to be updating and spending more money. So we do the QuickBooks Online, and it's helpful because our mom is actually still involved in this business to a small degree, but I'm training her to do some of the bookkeeping work so she can access the books and I can access the books to work on it. Although I have seen other people mention new programs out there for the non-accountant that I haven't looked into. So there are other online options cropping up. I'm sure if you just did a Google search for online accounting programs, since I am an accountant, I prefer a program that is geared towards an accountant. But there's so many online programs that are cropping up that it used to be QuickBooks or Quicken was your only alternative, but now there's a few more options that I'm seeing. So
okay, all right. Thanks for sharing that. So can we switch gears and talk about your Brilliant Business Moms, the podcast and that aspect of the business? Can you give us some background? Let's see. Beth Ann, do you want to give us some background about what Brilliant Business Moms is all about?
Sure. So Brilliant Business Moms is really a podcast that we created in order to help other moms who are just getting started in business. We felt like podcasts are such a great way to get business advice because you can listen while you're doing other things. As a busy mom, you can listen while you're driving your kids around or folding laundry or whatever the case is. But the podcasting world just seems so male-dominated and focused on businesses that really didn't relate to most of the moms that we knew who were in business. So we thought, okay, let's start a podcast that will help moms who are photographers or moms who are bloggers or Etsy shop owners. So that's really what it sprung from. And I think the other twist on our podcast is we do interviews, but we also try to take that advice from the interview and apply some of it or share other things that we're learning. So Sarah and I each do a What I'm Learning This Week segment on the podcast where we might do a new program we're learning about, a new aspect of growing your business that we've learned about, and just share that with our listeners as well.
And I love that aspect of your podcast. I think it's so great because it's like getting a review of something, and so then the listener can decide whether it's for them or not. In particular, I listened. You had a guest who talked about the purple cow, and then you read the purple cow, and then you talked about it, and I thought, oh, that's so cool that you're actually acting on what you're learning. How do you divvy up podcast-related tasks?
Well, we're still getting our feet figured out for that, but we conduct the interviews together, and we're each kind of responsible for our own what I'm learning this week. So when I did the Purple Cow interview, I did that from start to finish. I recorded it, I edited it, I did my picture and the post that accompanied it. So that was start to finish. I do all the editing though. So for the interviews, I go back and I do the editing and add our jingle and get it ready. But then Beth Ann takes over, and she's very good at the photo side of things. So when we have an interviewer that submits their headshot for the blog, she makes it all pretty and adds the words, and she's very talented that way. And she's the one that submits it to the directories for it to go live. So we're getting good at back and forth really between us. We talk all the time about what we're doing, what's next, whose job is this, whose job. I mean, Beth Ann and I are just emailing on the phone together all the time, back and forth, and we're both working hard and just sharing responsibilities that way.
Yeah. How do you decide who your guests are going to be?
A lot of it is just hunting around online, and some of them are guests that we've maybe read their blog for a while, or we've kind of admired their Etsy shop for a while, so we just reach out to them. But some of it is hunting around for new moms that we want to get to know. And I have to say, every time I stumble upon, say, a blog where I would be really interested in interviewing that mom, it generally leads me to maybe several of her friends who are also super talented and maybe have a blog that focuses on something different, or same thing with the Etsy shop. And recently we had someone on Etsy send us a message just to say how much they love the podcast, which was so sweet of her to do. But she actually happens to have an Etsy shop and her own website. And so we took a look at it right away and said, oh my goodness, you'd be perfect for the podcast. Will you please let us interview you? So of course she said yes. So that's another way. I think I'm hopeful that as we grow and continue on, that more people will come to us as well and say, hey, I'd love to be on your show.
Yeah. I know you sound like me. Anyone who writes and says, oh, I liked this episode, I'm like, do you have an Etsy shop? And then I rush over to Etsy and look at it. I'm like, okay, I like them. Can you come on? So, yeah. So your ideal target audience is moms who want to start a business, or can you define it better for me?
I would say either moms who are thinking about starting a business but maybe feel a bit overwhelmed. They're not sure if they really have all the advice or the support that they need to get started, but also moms who've had a business for a bit and maybe feel a bit stalled. They feel like they need more momentum, more advice and tools to really grow that business. So I think we're really twofold in that way, but I would say our focus is definitely, it's moms who most likely have kids still at home, and so they're trying to balance that whole life of being with their kids and also having a business versus, maybe I'm thinking of like a more corporate mom who starts from scratch with some great big company. We're not necessarily geared towards that. Maybe the smaller business moms who are still kind of working from home.
Okay. I like that. It's very defined, and that's the essence I get from your podcasts. And anyone who hasn't listened to the Brilliant Business Moms podcast, it's available on iTunes and Stitcher, and also on their website, brilliantbusinessmoms.com. And I'm going to have links to all of these in the show notes for this episode if you want to listen to them. If you're a mom and you have dreams of starting your own business, or you have a small business, I would highly recommend you listen to them because they give some really good information. They have some really good guests on, and I find it very helpful. And I'll ask both Sarah and Beth Ann, Sarah, if you can go first, what's something that you're doing now that you think is working really well for you?
Well, I think just the podcast general, I feel like is really starting to jive. If you mean in a business sense what we're doing, we're getting so much good feedback that what we're providing is what people are looking for. And it's so hard to know when you first start if it's resonating with anybody. Did they care? Does anybody listen? Does anybody want to hear what we have to say or our guests?
I know the feeling.
So, yeah. And we weren't getting that sort of feedback with the Backyard Brilliant blog that we tried. It didn't seem to be resonating with anybody. So we kind of sound fickle probably with the Etsy shop, and then we tried the blog, and now we're doing the podcast. But the podcast by far, it's resonating. People are listening. They're telling us they enjoy it, that they have found something helpful, and we are just loving that experience. So even when things get busy, it doesn't seem like work to be having a podcast interview. It feels like fun. So that seems to be really working for us right now.
Excellent. Beth Ann, would you agree, or do you have something else to add to that?
Well, I definitely agree with Sarah. I would say the podcast, for sure, this is something we're going to be doing for a long time because we enjoy it so much. We've enjoyed getting to know all of the moms that we've interviewed, and we're really enjoying getting to know all of our listeners. And I would say the other thing I love about it is that we're able to help other moms to grow a business. And so we've already had some moms who have brand new Etsy shops reach out to us and say how much they're enjoying the show. And so we have the chance to write back and say, hey, what do you need help with right now? Like, what can I do to help you be a success? And so we're able to provide that support and that help to moms just getting started. And it really is so much fun. It doesn't feel like work. It feels like, hey, I get to help this lady. Like this weekend, I'm going to do a tutorial video that's going to help her, and hopefully it's going to help other moms. So it's been a ton of fun. And I think that if you are running your own business, definitely try to make sure you're enjoying it. Do something that you enjoy as well as, can make a success. I will add one other thing that I think is working that I really would love for us to branch out and do more of this in the future. And that would be outsourcing when possible. I think that a lot of small business owners kind of put that off for way too long, and they think, they're problem solvers. They want to do everything themselves and just learn it and do it, but you only have so much time. So my attitude is more do what you enjoy, play up to your strengths, and then see if you can find someone else. I know for us, we have people on Odesk that we use to help us sometimes with blog formatting, and then we have someone on Elance who helps us with some online research and things to help us figure out which bloggers to reach out to and things like that. So both of those people have been invaluable. And as we grow, I definitely just want to see that ramp up as well.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's really excellent. I love that you guys have so much enthusiasm for what you're doing. I think it comes through so loudly in with the whole Brilliant Business Moms brand and your podcast. And you're right, podcasting is fun. It's work, but it's fun work. So I agree with you on that. What is the best way for people to reach you if they want to reach out to you? Sarah, can you share how best can people reach you guys?
There's a couple different ways. For the podcast, you can find us at brilliantbusinessmoms.com, or you can email us directly at brilliantbusinessmoms@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook for the same, Brilliant Business Moms on Facebook. But for the Amateur Naturalist Etsy shop, just send us a convo. I mean, I'm checking it 1,000,000 times a day to see if there's anybody who's getting in touch with us or if a new sale comes through. It's so addicting to check the Etsy shop far too many times in a day. But just send us a convo. We're happy to chat about anything related to our Etsy shop. I'm sure I missed a social media, though, Beth Ann. Is there a social
Oh,
media
yes.
I should have mentioned?
Oh, also Twitter. We are at Brilliant Biz Mom. So that's BIZ Mom, because I think the other one was taken already. But yeah, so you can tweet at me and I'll respond to you there. And we're on Pinterest as well. And I think it's pinterest.com/Brilliant Business Mom. So.
Okay. And I will have links to all these in the show notes for this episode. So if you don't remember it, just go to the show notes for the episode on the blog post, and I'll have direct links to the blog and the Etsy shop and Pinterest and Twitter, all that good stuff. Sarah, Beth Ann, thank you so much for being my guest this week. I really appreciate you taking the time. I love your podcast. I love what you're doing for moms who want to start their business. And I'm so glad you said the podcast is going to be, you're going to be doing it for a long time to come, because I think it's just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ajama. We've had such a fun time chatting with you. And you are actually the first podcast that we've been interviewed on. So that's been so exciting.
Good. I'm glad, because one day I'll probably reach out to you and your people will be doing your calendars.
Yeah, our people.
All right. Thank you, guys. If you've enjoyed this episode, please definitely feel free to leave feedback on the blog page or reach out directly to Sarah and Beth Ann. Again, all the links to their sites will be on the show notes. And thank you, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.